Hello and welcome back to another video on the channel. I'm Dan, CableGuy. So is it worth buying a dedicated Blu-ray player if you've already got something like an Xbox One S or the newer Xbox Series X? Well, that's what I'm going to look at. I'm running a 1080p system here in my dedicated room. A lot of people still have 1080p projectors, so is it worth buying a dedicated Blu-ray player? I'll be comparing the Panasonic UB820 to an Xbox One S, and we'll see how they perform. If you do enjoy the video, please feel free to drop a like and subscribe, and enjoy the rest of it. Let's dive in and have a look and see what we get inside. Right, there's not a huge amount to see on the outside of the packaging, to be honest with you. Inside we've got a very traditional looking Panasonic remote control. It's not exactly flashy, but they are always very functional, as you would expect. That's going to be a very slim instruction manual, as I would imagine most of the information is now found online. And of course you've got the hardware itself. Let's try and get this out. Oh, and of course there, a power cable and some Panasonic batteries. I think Panasonic used to be the #1 or the biggest battery manufacturer in the world. I don't know if they still are. Here we go, so that's quite nice. I'm not sure how this is picking up on camera, so apologies if the lighting's not amazing. But it's got, just trying to work out if it is actually brushed metal or whether it's just the design to look like brushed metal. I'll just bring it up closer to the camera here. You can probably see that in the light. So it has a brushed metal appearance. I would say that probably is a metal fascia. The drop down front flap, which always used to be a bit of a sign of the slightly higher end Panasonics. The lower range ones didn't have the front flap, it's just spring loaded, so if I let go it would spring back. And the lower range ones never used to have the spring loaded flap, and then the higher range ones did. So there we go, and simply on off and open close on the top. It's got a reasonable weight to it, I'll be honest, which is quite nice. I'll do some photos of this as well, but let's have a look at the back of the unit. So of course you've got audio output for HDMI because it's split, and then video and audio through the main HDMI output. LAN connectivity and the option for a hard disk drive. I'll have to look into that. That's quite interesting, HDD. And then audio outputs, which is quite nice then to have 7.1 audio outputs if your amplifier doesn't have the ability to process that. So you could run in through analog connections and let this do all of the decoding, and then there's an optical output as well for anyone that is still using an optical connection. So quite straightforward. So quite nicely made, it feels nice, reasonable weight to it, he says, actually, as I'm stretching my arms to hold it over to the camera. So yeah, that is it. There's not a lot on the sides. It's not rack mountable, so it would obviously go onto a rack shelf of some sort. But there we are. I don't think there's a lot more to show you there really. Next up, I will install it into my rack to replace my current 1080p Blu-ray player, and then do some photos of it as well. So yeah, there we go. That's the initial unboxing of the Panasonic DP-UB820 Blu-ray player. Let's have a look at the user interface. Overall, I'd say it's fine. Personally, I would use it just for my disc playback. Based on the other features which I'll discuss in a second, I wouldn't really use this as much of a media player overall. Purely for discs, just as I say for Blu-ray. So click on video, for example, it'll ask you whether you're viewing back from disc or USB. That's the same if you select music and photos. You've got a couple of home network options, which includes if you have devices on the network which can play back video, for example, you would click on network contents playback. I don't have any, so I don't have that access, but you could do that to view back files from, for example, a network drive. And you've got the mirroring feature. As a plug and play option, the mirroring doesn't work for me. I went into mirroring, it asks you to mirror from your smartphone, and my smartphone didn't find the Panasonic as a mirroring device. So that was a bit disappointing off the bat. One of the reasons I bought this device, apart from physical media playback, was for the network services. I wondered whether Netflix would be any better at all through the Panasonic than I currently get through my Xbox Series S. And to be honest with you, the menu system's a little bit clunky for Netflix because it's part of their network services. You'll see here this is in real time. This is it flicking over to the network services side, which is not particularly slick. And then when you actually get it on screen here, I used to sell Panasonic from early 2000s up to around 2009, and I'm pretty sure this is the same menu system it had back then. That noise, even the noise is annoying. It's not very classy. It doesn't feel like an up-to-date product, in my opinion. Let me mute the audio there. If you go into Netflix, once you actually get in there, it's okay. It's a little bit slow in terms of moving from one page to another, for example, but it's not terrible. The way it actually lays it out on screen is the same as I get through my Xbox Series S, so no issues there either. I'm pretty sure when I first got this player, it didn't support Atmos. I'm pretty sure that was the case. It does now seem to support Atmos. So I don't know whether there's been an update or whether I missed that originally. But basically, I can't really see any reason to use this over my Xbox Series S because I can't see an improvement in picture quality. I can't notice any audio quality difference, and it's a little bit more clunky than it is through the Xbox Series S. So as I say, for me, the Netflix side of it, if you don't have another media player, maybe you would use it, but for me, I don't really have the necessity for it, to be honest with you. If I go into the setup here, there's all of the player settings. You can change the wallpaper, which I must say I wouldn't see the point in doing, but let's go into player settings. Again, this is very basic, but very clear. I can't see why you'd need more than this in a menu system. It's not supposed to be beautiful, it's supposed to be functional. And you know, this is it. This is the menu system, and it is absolutely fine. As I'm using a 1080p projector, of course, I just got this set to automatic video format. I can't get 4K, of course, so what can I do? But that is the settings menu on screen. So let's get my thoughts on this Panasonic UB820 Blu-ray player then. So as I said in the intro, this is being compared against the Xbox One S as a disc playback device, which is what I was running before. And all of this, I've done my testing or my comparisons, my amateur comparisons on a 1080p projector. So again, this is just for a lot of people out there that are still running 1080p projectors like me. Is it worth buying a dedicated Blu-ray player? And in my case, as I say, this is the UB820 versus the Xbox One S. So to run through a few things, I was doing the comparison just literally one after the other with the same disc and the same scene, which was scene 2 or track 2 or part 2 of the film Ready Player One. So that's the monologue with the main character running into the race scene. So the monologue for a start is a really good one for me. That gives you a real idea of how the audio performs. And to me, the Blu-ray player, the Panasonic UB820, had a slightly better sound to it. So that's with the monologue giving you that center channel dialogue, and the Xbox seemed a little bit thinner. Marginal, it was very marginal between the two, but in my opinion, from taking the disc in and out, trying it on the different devices, I found that the Blu-ray player seemed to have a slightly fuller sound when it was delivering that vocal. When it gets into the big action sequences and there's things flying everywhere, I personally wouldn't say I could really tell a difference. They both sounded very impressive, but because there's so much going on, I didn't find it that easy to decipher a difference between them. But with somebody talking straight at you through the center channel, that's where I noticed a difference in the audio. Moving on to the video side of things, which is where I was hoping to see a difference. Again, as I say, I'm not running this on a 4K projector and I don't have HDR capabilities. So it's purely comparing, I guess, the internal components of the Panasonic and its processing power. Watching the two, I found that the Panasonic seemed to have a slightly better picture in a couple of ways. One of them, there's a moment where one of the characters, Nolan Sorrento, I think his name is walking towards the camera. Now, when viewing that back through the Xbox One S, it did appear to have a slight, not halo, but a little bit of maybe digital artifacts around that character as he walks towards you. That didn't seem to have that effect on the Panasonic Blu-ray player. So again, I guess maybe a difference in the processing power, or maybe again just a combination of processing and components, but the Panasonic did seem to handle that slightly better. Another area that did seem better, again it was very marginal, was the sort of dynamics of the image. So when you're watching the race scene, in the background you've got the city skyline, and over the back you've then got a horizon, you've got the you've got a sunset, and the sun setting is obviously really vivid. Now on the Panasonic, again, it did seem to have a little bit more dynamics to it. It just seemed to pop more than it did on the Xbox. I wouldn't be disappointed if the Xbox was my only playback device, but with the Panasonic being there as a dedicated device, I do find that that's got a bit more pop, a bit more sparkle to it. So again, I am pleased that it does seem to have slight improvements, even without me having a 4K projector or running it on a screen with HDR, for example. I would imagine if you are running a higher end projector, or you're running the Blu-ray player through a flat screen TV, perhaps for example a good quality OLED, then you're probably more likely to see a difference. But again, with my setup, the difference was marginal, but still, in my opinion, it did look to be an improvement. To clarify with me again, I'm always testing this in my own room here. I don't get sent any of the items or anything like that. It's purely just something that I've actually got as a Christmas present, the Blu-ray player, all those months ago, and have tested it with my system. So this is purely just my opinion based on my room with a humble set of equipment. So as I say, overall, I've been impressed with the Panasonic. Build quality is very good. Menu systems are easy to use. As I said before, I wouldn't use things like Netflix on it. It doesn't really appeal to me, just the way it comes up on screen. As I say, performance is good as well, and does seem to be an improvement over the Xbox One S. So far it has been very, very reliable. The only one issue I've had was a slight glitch where it got stuck. It froze, the menu seemed to be loading as if it was doing something. It wouldn't do anything, so I did have to switch it off and back on again. But otherwise, you pop a disc in, it plays. I've had no audio or video issues. I've had no freezing during playback, and so just literally one occasion where the machine seemed to lock up. Powering it off and back on again seemed to resolve that. Otherwise, it's been running absolutely fine. So there we go, that is my thoughts on the Panasonic UB820 Blu-ray player in comparison to an Xbox One S as a physical media player. And as I say, for me, it does get a thumbs up. It does seem to be an improvement over the Xbox One S, which is really, really good. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please feel free to drop a like and subscribe. Any comments, pop them below. If you're running this machine with a 1080p projector, with a 4K projector, or if you've done similar comparisons, do feel free to put that in the comments as well. I'll see you in the next video. Take care of yourselves.